Welcome, I'm Brian the Builder, and in today's episode, I am going to be using 3D Studio Max to create some jewelry. Specifically, I'm going to make a peace symbol ring for my daughter that will be 3D printed, and then I'm going to use some colored resin and a UV flashlight to basically put, colored gemstones almost into the sections of the peace sign. So hopefully this should be a really fun project. All right, I'm gonna get to it. Well, that really should be it. I am glad that I double checked the circumference, the diameter of this, because the inner circle here, the inner diameter, actually needed to be 15 millimeters across. So the radius at 7.5 is what I set this to originally, but because of the thickness of it, it wasn't the inner diameter. So I really thought with a torus I got to set the inner and the outer diameter, but it's not quite how that works. So again, I'm glad I double checked. This should actually fit her finger. Now, essentially, I think I don't necessarily need to, but I'm gonna throw that circle away, select everything, and then export it. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, that's kind of great. Alright, so I would still, and I'm definitely not ready to go print, but I would definitely want to add a couple heavy ones right on the bottom, so that as the print really kind of gets started, well, that might be a little too much with two of them that close together. I really don't want it pulling off of that as the print starts, and that's going to be kind of the most important point as it gets going. The rest of it should print without too many issues, but that should make sure that, yeah, really need one. It probably doesn't need to be a heavy one, but right back there is probably not a bad idea. It'll keep it all really well supported. All the nice bridging in there, so that's a good start for that one. But I'm going to go back to Max, actually make a couple more, jump back in here, and after I print this out, I'll be back at the bench and we'll fill those spots with resin and hit them with the UV flashlight. It should look really cool actually once it's all printed, with the ring just being that kind of light ceramic gray, and then the bright colors in these sections. Alright, I'll be back at the bench in just a minute. So after printing out the first version of this ring, it just looked really wimpy and thin and breakable and just not good. So I kind of went back and made some adjustments, and I think it's much cooler. So this is an overlap, right? So there's a bit of an edge there that I think once it's printed and cured, I can sand that down a little bit and you'll never see that. And adjust the transition a little bit and smooth it all out. And hopefully the increased depth and increased thickness of these central bars should give a lot more kind of, I don't know, feeling of real jewelry to it instead of just kind of feeling like a little plastic chintzy thing, which essentially it is, but I don't want it to look like that. So this should give it a little bit more volume, and hopefully the depth of resin in there will allow it to have a bit more like fullness in the color as well. But I want to make something else that's a little bit completely different, and kind of go through the process of how I did a couple of these pieces, because I think it's still kind of cool. Some of the things that you can do in 3ds Max that are somewhat different than, well, I think other software. So let me just go save as, and we're going to save this as, let's call this split ring. And this is going to be based on a design of a ring I actually made physically out of metal. Well, started out with wax, and then did a lost wax casting technique in college to make this ring. I'm pretty sure the first ring I ever made. So I'm going to do something similar to that here. Now I want a couple of these elements, so I'm going to go to shape here, so I can only select shapes. And I'm going to grab the 2 shapes that are in there. That is essentially kind of the starting point for that base ring. And then I'm really just going to delete everything else. So select invert. And we're going to kill that. Alright, so now this is basically the starting point for the new ring. And then, you know, kind of starting this way, the nice thing is I have the environment in here. My material's already in my material editor. And one of the cool things about the way I'm going to do this, now I know that's not perfectly round, but that doesn't really matter too much. Your finger's not perfectly round either. So a compound object in Max allows me to use 2 shapes together to essentially create a solid object. Now that in and of itself definitely doesn't look like it's going to work well as a ring. Part of this within the loft, right, the shape itself, when it was applied, went on vertically, really, rather than horizontally, and we want it to be horizontal. So I'm going to rotate it on its own local axis here. It's forcing it that way. And I want to go 90 degrees. But as you see, even though this is rotated 90 degrees, now this side's vertical. So there is a twist along the length of that spline that I just need to go into these deformations and look at that parameter. So if I go into the twist, make this a little bigger, I probably just need to go to the end and move the end point, either positive or negative, one way or the other, I'm not sure, to get to where it's essentially horizontal at the end as well as at the beginning. So, and it doesn't seem like that's going to need to go all the way to 90, and I can just type it in. If we just type in negative 90, right, it's definitely too far. So let's try negative 80. And that's hard to say, I don't think that's exact, but that doesn't look quite right either. That looks really close. All right, I think once that's on your finger, probably wouldn't matter a whole lot. All right, but actually, we don't want those quite that far offset anyway, so you never know, I might have to go back in there and make some adjustments to that as well. But I'm going to go back to the path that's on the inside. And let's see, let's actually start with that. We're going to go. Oh, automatic welding was turned on. So let's undo a little. Turn automatic welding back off, because moving that in that viewport shouldn't have caused them to overlap in the first place. Alright, so as I was saying, I'm probably going to have to come back in and redo the twist, because that is no longer correct. And I'm also going to have to probably make some more adjustments to the overall shape once that twist is figured out, so that it actually is the right size in the end. So actually, let's turn it off. Since the two pieces aren't as offset, the twist is no longer as much of an issue. So we can just not use it. But then I do still need to go back, to the shape. A little better. All right, now I think we're still going to want to back these away from each other a little bit more and give me a little bit more room to create kind of the idea of the original ring. And it was really the first time I had at that point. Well, I haven't done much since, but had never worked with wax before. So the first thing I really just started out carving in the wax ended up being kind of this cool, funky, geometric end. And I had no idea what to do with the other side, so to kind of balance it out, I just dripped a bunch of wax on the other side and made this, I don't know, I thought it was cool balance between a geometric design and an organic design. So that's the idea for this one. I'm not really sure at this point. It's going to take some trial and error. Not really sure how I'm going to deal with the really organic-y shape. I've got some ideas, but I'm not really sure what's going to work. So that's going to be a process, and I might even have to print it out and come back and try it again, just like I did with the piece ring. So hopefully this one will actually be, because I'm starting out with a heavier shape to begin with, this one will be a little bit closer to what I want the final version to be anyway. Hopefully. All right, so I'm just going to get to work and stop talking. Okay, well, I like the direction of this. I think this will be cool with kind of a bunch more small bits added. But the organic side definitely not working. Right? There's a whole bunch of just wrong. That's just not okay. It looks bad. So the idea is there though. I like the idea of the kind of opposition of organic and geometric. I think that can actually be kind of a cool concept here. But this, not it. So that's gonna go away. I'm gonna start again, and I'm gonna think about if I use AutoGrid and I just kind of start making a bunch of funky cool overlapping spheres, and I don't want to get down inside the ring there too far. So I think this hopefully will have a little bit more of the feel, I guess, of what I was going for. That hopefully will look a little bit more like the blobby wax that had been part of the original. And it definitely has more of that whole feel already. So definitely a cooler way to go, and a lot faster. Alright, so I know I ended up with a few on the inside there that really don't matter. It's kind of adding to the geometry count of the scene, but in and of itself that really is not going to have an impact on anything. So I think volume-wise, I think that feels pretty good. That's an oddity. I don't like that little tiny point poking through, so let's make this just a little heavier. Definitely better. There's a couple spots that I'm not quite sure might be a little too oddly together here. I like the collection of angles. This I think looks pretty cool. This needs a little bit of work still. So I'm just going to keep fiddling with it until it feels done. So I'm definitely going to be a bit more though. Well, that's cool. I actually have never used select in place before, so that's kind of wild. hopefully that gets across an idea of kind of the, I don't know, opposing nature of geometric and organic. And hopefully it looks cool once it's printed and doesn't just seem like this weird collection of gunk, which it definitely has the possibility of looking like. So I do hope it looks cool once it's printed out. But that is definitely very similar, definitely not the same, to the original that I made in college. This end was far less complicated. And this side was probably a little more complicated, with the more kind of drippy organic nature of wax and the ability to not really file and carve this level of detail into wax. So hopefully this one is still also cool once it's printed out compared to the one that was cast from the wax original. So that's it for now, and I'll be back in a little bit once I'm going to be adding resin actually into that piece ring. Okay, so here are the 2 rings I printed. I think that turned out pretty cool. And the simple skull ring. So I think that'll look pretty cool though. But I need to try all of these resins. So I'm just going to put a blob of each. So that's pink. And I'll put them over here, hopefully in the right order. So I remember which one's which. That's red. Pink. And then ruby red. I did try to shake them, so I don't know much really about using colored resins. I'm not sure if they need to be shook up. So yellow, and I did try to shake them. Wow, that's a nice intense color. Purple. Blue, that's nice. And then sapphire blue. Looks, well, it's a little different. And then green. Green's not very intense. All right, so now I'm going to hit these with the UV flashlight and see if they change at all once they're cured. All right, those are all cured. I don't really think the color's changed. Well, I think for the ring, I would imagine the gray is probably going to darken those colors a little and make them feel a little less saturated. But I think pink, yellow, purple, blue, probably a good balance. I'm gonna try hitting it with the heat gun for just a second and see if I can pop that little bubble that's in there. Yep, there it goes. Bubbles are gone. I think to be safe, I'm gonna cure each color as I go, rather than, and then if I get another color on top of this, I can just wipe it off. pretty hard. I think if I touch, yeah, I still feel just a slight tack. So I'm gonna hold that a little longer. Alright, another little bubble. That's pretty cool. Alrighty. I'm gonna try to get away with just putting the purple in. I think it'll be okay. Now that I got smarter and realized I could kind of take the bubble off there. And I also adjusted the beam of the flashlight here to narrow it. Oh, it's probably too late. Yep. Alright, there's a bubble in the purple. I'm gonna try to fill in. Might have worked. Yeah, I think there's still a little bubble in there, but it is what it is now. Trying to catch it from different angles, make sure no shadows from the walls of the peace sign blocking any of the UV light. And I think other than the bubble in there, it's pretty darn cool actually. It is so shiny, it's kind of almost hard to see the color. But that's pretty cool. Now, I was thinking that I would do the eyes of the skull with a color too, but, and I was kind of hoping red, but I don't have a red that's red enough. And I don't think any of the others would really look that cool. And ruby red, maybe, but I don't know. It's pretty cool without it. It's made for little girl fingers. So Abby will have some cool stuff to wear to school. So I think that's pretty cool. I like this new colored UV resin. I actually got it for a different project, and then doing this kind of stuff just kind of popped into my head as something that I could, model in 3D and then print and play with the colored resin for these kinds of things, little jewelry pieces. I don't know. I think this is pretty neat, really. So I like the idea. It's pretty durable. It's actually pretty tough plastic. Resin strong if you don't overcure it. If you overcure it, it gets brittle. But the fact is if this snaps, it's like 14 cents really worth of resin, and it's not that hard to reprint it. Now, right? If you were, you know, trying to mass produce these or something, you would definitely want to do something out of metal, right? But, for, quick one-off kind of fun stuff, this is great. Lots of fun. Very cool project. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.